So today, we're gonna get practical in the pan. So many of you, when you start cooking, you just kind of like throw things in the pan and kind of like hope and pray for a miracle that good tasting food will come out of it. And so I'm here to help you today, to help you learn that there's really 4 basic things you're gonna do in a pan, on the stove top, on a regular basis. Now, there might be some other things you do, but for the most part, there's gonna be 4 things you do in a pan. The first is you render something, right? And then you sweat, sear, and saute. Those are like the 4 main things that actually happen inside one of these pans, like on a daily basis if you're just heading to the stove and cooking. And so I want you to learn something today, so let's dive right into this. Rendering. It's the lowest heat when you start cooking in a pan. So rendering means like really low heat, and you'll put something in there like, say, bacon. We're gonna put bacon in, chopped up, and it's just going to go ahead and slowly melt out all the fat. Right? And so when you're done, you should have like a big pool of fat, and then you should have this crispy bacon when you're done. Right? You can render that. You can render other things like pork belly or even some pancetta or something like that, where you really want to, if you want it to be really crispy, you want to extract all the fat and get that really crispy bacon. Typically it happens with something very fatty. You can even do that with like a duck breast. If you want to get a nice crispy skin, you would put it in a pan on a lower heat and slowly render all the fat out, leaving you with this crispy finished product. And that's the goal of rendering. And there's also, because then you have this whole like pool of fat, right, that you can use for something else. You could use it to cook your duck breast in, or you could use it for just about really anything, just daily cooking if you want to. And that's what we call, really called lard, is what kind of comes off of that is the fat that melts down and then solidifies when at room temperature when it's left to cool, right? And then from there, we're gonna go up to sweating. So sweating, it's just like I say, if you're in the kitchen and you like cooking, you're gonna glisten at some point, right? The little bubbles all over, and that's what sweating is. Sweating is when you throw something in the pan, and more of still a low to medium-ish heat, and you'll allow all of the moisture to seep out of the pan. And this is where we actually want to keep the moisture, and that's the reason why we sweat something, like say some onions. If you sweat some onions, you actually keep the moisture in the pan, and then use those flavors from the onions and the moisture that came out of them in the dish that you're using. A lot of times you sweat something before you do a soup or some sort of sauce. You might sweat the onions, right? And so from there, you're gonna go up to sauteing. Sauteing is where you raise the heat. And you wanna get enough heat that you hear that when you throw the food in, you go whoosh, right? And you hear all that sauteing, sizzling goodness. And that's what you're looking for when you're sauteing. And sauteing means to jump, is what we were always taught. And so if you look at the bubbles inside the pan, you look at the food down in here, you would see little bubbles jumping all over the place. So saute is it's an action word, it's a verb that we'd use when we're cooking. And so you should hear that sizzling sound, and that's the sound of a great saute. And what's kind of neat, here, what we do full-time is we teach cooking classes live and in person right here. We also teach the virtual classes as well. So if you're interested in any of the things that we do, whether it's an in-person class or a virtual class or recorded class, if you click down in the description, you can get a link to our website, and you can see some of the wonderful things that we do, full tutorials on those kind of things. But when you're here live with me in the classroom, I can actually hear from across the room if you're sauteing well, because I can tell by the sound of the sizzle, whether it's or that's right? And those are real technical culinary terms, right? Those sound effects, those are technical culinary terms. You should learn them. And anyway, so the last one we're gonna do is searing. And searing is where the temperature is a whole lot hotter, and you're gonna definitely hear the sound of sizzling, and you're gonna see a little bit of smoke. You don't wanna smoke too much because that means you're burning your fat, but that's where transformation happens, whether it's your onions or your peppers or whatever you're cooking are going to transform into, they're going to turn brown and get some color on them. And also any proteins that you put in the pan, you're going to peel them up, and you're going to get the brown on those as well. That is what's called the Maillard reaction. It's denaturing of proteins, but we'll talk about that in another video. But the essence of what you do in a pan are those 4 things. You render, sweat, saute, and sear. Hey, so if you learned something, please hit the like button and subscribe to our videos, and then hit the notification bell so you know when we have new ones coming out. Please check out any of the products and things that we talked about in this video in the description below. And then we've got some other videos to check out. One at how to saute in a pan, or actually how to flip in a pan. The other one is how to saute. And remember that cooking will make your life better, and so let's do that together.